Good morning!
Oh, Sonic the Hedgehog. Remember when he was popular? Well, he still is, I suppose. But do you remember when he was really popular? The 90s, as it was better known. He was all 2D and everyone was arguing whether or not he'd batter Mario in a fight. Then he went all 3D and we were like, holy crap, look at that whale! And holy crap, look at that truck! But maybe perhaps those games aren't great? Then by that point we were in the 2000s and Sonic went back to 2D for a couple of games on the Game Boy Advance and that was okay, I guess. Then Sonic Team, as in the team that makes the Sonic games, went, hey, how about a brand new character platformer about a new superhero that has egg-based powers, and it's only for the Nintendo Gamecube? And the world kind of went, eh. And that, dear viewer, is why I've chosen to talk about Sonic Team's largely forgotten Hedgehog successor, Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg. Alright, so I think a little bit of context on the state of the gaming world at Billy Hatcher's release would be a good place to start. You see, it was 2003, and give or take a few months, it was only 2 years since Sega stopped production of the Dreamcast and bowed out of the hardware business for good. So really, we were still dealing with the fact that the Sega and Nintendo console war was over, and that the playground battle lines had been redrawn between Nintendo, Sony and Microsoft. And it's in that world that Yuji Naka, Sonic's creator, announced that Sega and Sonic Team's first post-Dreamcast 3D platform game on a major console would be Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg. Now this wouldn't be Sega's first game to be released on a Nintendo platform. Thanks to Sonic Team, in fact, as they had already released Choo Choo Rocket and Sonic Advance on the Game Boy Advance. I still remember it as being a fairly big deal though. Or was that just me? Anyway, a Sonic Team on a home Nintendo console, I went out and bought Billy Hatcher immediately, and I remember being instantly charmed by it, but ultimately being put off by dodgy controls. Beyond that, I remember bouncing on eggs and little else. Disappointed, I traded it in. Then, early this year, I got the hankering to play it again, and managed to grab a copy for like £6 off of eBay. Maybe it isn't as bad as I remember, and with a bit more practice I'll enjoy it more. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself here, I think. I've not even talked about the game itself yet, have I? Quick story rundown then. Taking place in Morningland, one day the sun sets, as it does, but it does not rise again in the morning. Turns out crows are to blame. Magical crows at that. Well, they'd have to be magical, really. These crows are turning into monsters who are set on keeping the world in eternal night. They've captured the chicken elders, who bring about the dawn every morning, and have sealed them in golden eggs. A young boy from the human world, the titular Billy Hatcher, finds a legendary chicken suit that grants him power over all eggs, and sets out with his friends, who never actually appear outside of the intro or multiplayer, to save the elders, defeat the crows, and bring the day back to the world. So basically the story is your standard Sonic Team fare, with Yuji Naka sticking to the environmentalist theme that he used for the Sonic the Hedgehog series. Dr. Eggman and the Crows as an allegory in their respective games for the industrialist capitalists destroying the world. Sonic and Billy fighting to restore nature's order and all that. This game is charming though. The look is probably the strongest part of the game for me. I kind of love the cute character design. It's got a very sort of bouncy and expressive animation, and it's a very Sega Blue Skies kind of game. Music matches perfectly as well, and I dare you to get that main theme out of your head. It's just all wonderfully feel good. Excellent, you might say. Speaking yet again of Sonic, if you played any of the 3D Sonic games, the moment you pick up the pad to control Billy, it will feel familiar. Moving Billy around is as twitchy as any of the other Sonic Team games. There's little in the way of a dead zone for the analog controls. The slightest movement of the stick will have Billy running off in that direction. It makes fine control a bit of a nightmare. Again, if you played any of the Sonic games, you'll know exactly what I mean by that. The game differs from Sonic though in how the eggs affect gameplay. You'll find eggs dotted around the level, and Billy can roll them around. They can be used for traversal. Billy can dash with them and bounce with them. Wait, eggs bounce? bounce with them to jump higher than he normally could. And also, while holding onto an egg, it enables you to use these rings around the level that shoot you off in the direction they face, bringing to mind the barrels from the Donkey Kong Country games. But the eggs are also Billy's method of attack. There's no jumping on the enemy's heads, and any physical contact with them knocks health off. But the eggs give you several options. Firstly, just rolling the egg sees Billy squishing enemies as he goes, which is all fine and well for the smaller enemies, but for the larger lads that can take a hit, that can be hazardous to Billy's health. Other options include shooting the egg out in front of you, which sends the enemies rolling off, and they in turn will hit other enemies like balls in the game of snooker. The egg is also given a serious bit of backspin, so it comes right back to Billy, and it feels pretty satisfying. Or jump and fire the egg into the ground, or use the bounce to squish them. Between the rolling and the bouncing and the squishing and the general bludgeoning of monsters to death, these are the strongest eggs you'll ever see. Only they're not. A couple of good hits from an enemy to an egg will crack it open and leave you scrambling to find a new egg. Not a difficult task, but it does leave you vulnerable. Some enemies can instantly break eggs with their attacks, and some environmental hazards like thorns and fire do them in as well. So in later levels, some timing and care is necessary. But take care of the eggs, roll them over the fruit left behind by the dead crows, and once they get big enough, Billy can shout "cock-a-doodle-doo" and hatch them. He does it better than I do. The basic blue and yellow eggs have nothing inside, but the rest either have various power-ups or animals that have powers of their own and follow you around for a while. The game is structured into 6 areas consisting of 5 levels each. The first level of each area sees you finding the golden egg in which the local chicken elder is trapped. You feed it up and then hatch it so the elder can restore daytime back to the area. Then in the second level you've got to find the dark gate which takes you to a boss battle. Beat that boss and it unlocks the next area. So at that point you've either got the choice of continuing on or tackling the other 3 levels in the area, which will just kind of get from A to B type of affairs. Oh, but I cannot stress enough though how much the controls really let this game down. For the most part, the levels could accommodate for having to wrestle with Billy's habit of suddenly running off at all angles, and constantly having to adjust and readjust the camera. The left shoulder button locks onto nearby enemies or centers the camera behind Billy, but I find myself fighting with that all the time. That is to say, the platforms tend to be nice and wide, and the enemies slowly bumble towards you if they're not just wandering around. So it's a nice, low-pressure experience. The bosses can be a bit awkward, as the camera refuses to stay locked onto them, but it's more than manageable with some practice. And then, I reached the 5th area, Circus Park, and it all came flooding back. The reason I put down Billy Hatcher the first time around, that is. You see, the levels where you're hatching the golden eggs to save the chicken elders, if the egg cracks open, then you just instantly lose a life and you have to start the section again, only without any power-ups you had gathered on the way. Again, not really that much of a problem in the earlier levels if you persevere a little, but in Circus Park, it presents you with a path that's a little narrower than usual, chock full of enemies, and a flame trap that'll crack the egg even if it's not currently flaming. No problem. Bit of a careful bouncing sees Billy past that part. Careful as you collect that fruit, mind you. And then there's these rails that you push the egg onto, and then run to the other side, carefully catching it. No problem. Here's a second set of rails. Carefully position the egg. Don't want to run Billy off the edge with these twitchy controls. And, oh. The egg just fell straight through the rails, life lost. And that's not a fluke glitch. It happens on that one rail all the time for me. And it's a real problem because it's a fight with the controls to line the egg up just right and not run you or it off the side. And then it happens again, or you fall off, and then on the off chance the egg does take to the rail and mold to the other side, you're presented with one of those guys whose spinning attack makes them invulnerable and cracks eggs instantly. So they either do you or the egg in, or knock you off the side, which may not be such a problem if it wasn't for the rail issue. And in turn that might not be a problem if you could just bang your head against it for a while. But you have lives, so you get game over and it's back to the very start of the level and you have to play all through that again. And I must have tried through 8 or 9 sets of lives to get past this one spot. But I was thwarted by that rail and the hyperactive controls every single time. So now I'm doing what I must have done 15 years ago. I'm leaving it there. I don't know. I bet there's Billy Hatcher fans shouting at their screens right now about how I'm just rubbish and I need to get good at rolling giant eggs. But I gave it a good crack, and sadly, the eggs have beaten me. The only thing left to mention is the multiplayer mode, which offers 4-player split screen across a few different small arena battle modes, and is literally the only other time Billy's little friends turn up. I don't know where they are the rest of the time. These are Billy no-mates until they want to scrap. And then, as a hidden bonus for those of you with a Game Boy Advance and a Gamecube link cable, there's hidden eggs that unlock games to download to your Game Boy Advance. There's Billy Hatcher Hypershoot, which is a basic vertical scrolling shooter. But more interestingly, there's Game Boy Advance versions of other Sonic Team games too. You can unlock mini versions of Puyo Pop, Choo Choo Rocket, and Nights into Dreams. An exciting little bonus for you there, eh? Eh? Anyway, with middling reviews and a tepid response from the game-buying public, Billy didn't prove himself popular enough to warrant a sequel. Not even a little rumbling of a rumour of a sequel. Apart from a PC port of the game, and Billy turning up in Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, he's well and truly been shown the exit. No chance for redemption. Sonic Team are just stuck with Sonic ever since for their 3D platformers. So basically I'm blaming you guys who didn't buy the game for Sonic kissing a girl and turning into a werewolf. This is all your fault. You should have bought Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg. Thanks for sticking with the video. If you want to encourage more nonsense from me, give me a like, give me a subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Until then, take care of yourselves. Ta-ra!